Mickey Mouse pulled the plug, and Jimmy Kimmel's not happy. ABC suspended his late-night show indefinitely. He was spotted storming out of the studio last night and hopping into a getaway car. Even across the pond, Trump couldn't resist.
Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago.
So why'd Kimmel get benched? He falsely framed you for killing Charlie.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Almost half of ABC's affiliates were threatening to black out his show that night. Advertisers were burning up the phones. ABC executives were getting flooded with emails. Disney boss Bob Iger wanted Kimmel to apologize, but Kimmel said, "No way, Bob."
Jimmy wanted to go on his show last night, and in his monologue, I hear that he wanted to address the backlash from the right regarding his commentary about Charlie Kirk's charged killer. And I hear that that monologue was very hot. It very much took aim at MAGA, and that is when the executives said, we can't have him go on the air tonight.
Little Jimmy Kimmel thought he was bigger than Disney, bigger than Mickey Mouse. Charlie Kirk's body isn't even buried, and ABC affiliates are refusing to air his show. They're on the brink of an advertiser boycott, and this guy's not even in first place. And he says, let's go another round. So the boss said, take a breather, Jimmy. You're costing us a fortune and making us look like we don't have a conscience. After the biggest assassination since Martin Luther King, the face of your network can't lie about the shooting and pin it on MAGA. Sounds like an easy call to me. But the left thinks America as a country is finished.
This is a major moment in American history. This is a crossing of the Rubicon.
There may be no democracy to save a year from now. This is a red alert moment.
If you're not paying attention now and doing something about it, well, then you're going to have to sit down the rest of your life because democracy is being taken away.
Ribs want libs to do something about it. Well, they already shot Trump and killed Charlie. What does he have in mind? Charlie Kirk got murdered in cold blood for speaking his mind. But a comedian getting suspended is the turning point in American history? Fang Fang's boy toy, who never fought for any of your jobs, is fighting for Jimmy's.
You are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He every night has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans, just as Greg Gutfeld on Fox has a right to be not funny and go on his network and entertain.
You don't have a right to say whatever you want on network television. They're public airwaves. You're not going to get thrown in jail if you drop the F-bomb or crack an ethnic joke, but you're not going to last long. Network television has standards of decency, decorum, taste. Legally, what's on the public airwaves is supposed to serve the public interest. Lying about a crime is actually a big no-no on the networks. They can lose their license. Now, Jimmy Kimmel's not entitled to his job. He said the wrong thing, and now he's in a little trouble. It's happened to a lot of us on TV. ABC suspended Brian Ross for pinning a shooting on the wrong guy. Sound familiar? Whoopi for mangling the Holocaust. Bob Greasy for a taco joke. And they fired Limbaugh and Roseanne for racial stuff. ABC fired Bill Maher for calling the 9/11 hijackers brave.
We have been the cowards, lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. That's cowardly. Staying in the airplane when it hits the building. Say what you want about it, not cowardly.
Did he have a right to say that? Yeah. Was that the wrong thing to say right after 9/11? Yeah. We were still pulling bodies out of the smoking rubble at Ground Zero. And Maher was calling Al-Qaeda courageous and America a bunch of wimps. He didn't get sent to prison, just to HBO, where a guy with his material belongs. Toobin got caught playing naked solitaire on the work Zoom. CNN suspended him, and now he's back. Sometimes we screw up, and Jimmy screwed up. Maybe he comes back. But why is Kimmel so special?
America is a less free place if late-night comedians cannot do and say what they want. Of course, they can be tuned out. People can change the channel. That's how we vote. That's how we have our say in America. But this really does have a chilling effect across the American media.
First of all, it wasn't a joke. He blamed the right for killing Charlie with a straight face. It was a lie, and it puts a target on the right's back. And second, can late-night comedians on TV tell racist jokes? Can they tell Jewish jokes? Can you tell gay jokes on network TV? Can they talk about how fat and ugly their bosses are? Of course not. I don't think Kimmel should be fired for a bad joke or even this comment. But there are standards in show business. Everyone in the business knows it. If he wants to tell lies and make scornful comments about half the country and get really edgy, get a podcast or do it on Netflix. Do you think Johnny Carson, before Kennedy's funeral, could say it was the Catholics that shot him in Dallas? Everyone's making this about free speech. It's about business. You can't run a business when your employees make you look bad. And people are threatening not to put your product on the shelf. And when you ask your employee to apologize, he says, F you. Straight to HR, Kimmel. And is Kimmel even worth it? Look at his ratings from the last 15 years. Look at that. He should have been let go a long time ago. He assassinated his own numbers. The Disney stock price, that hasn't gone up in the last 4 years. This isn't about censorship. This is about math.
This is misery, and in the world of somebody who is an authoritarian, maybe a dictatorship, sooner or later everyone is going to be touched.
Obama says the First Amendment is dead. Quote, this is precisely the kind of government coercion that the First Amendment was designed to prevent. And media companies need to start standing up rather than capitulating to it. Do David and Barack understand that Trump didn't suspend Kimmel? His boss, Bob Iger, suspended him. And Obama knows a lot about government coercion. His IRS targeted the Tea Party. Biden forced big tech to censor us for telling the truth about COVID and for telling funny jokes about Fauci. And the same people complaining now loved that. They wanted more of it. Since the beginning of television, hosts have been suspended for being wrong, dumb, racist, sexist, obnoxious, crass, crude. They're so out of touch with who Charlie was and what he symbolized and the threat level we're all facing that they can't show the grace and empathy that you'd expect from a healthy, well-adjusted adult. Kimmel's not the victim. Charlie was. Charlie's dead. Kimmel's on paid vacation. This could have all been avoided if Kimmel had just cleaned it up the next night. One of the reasons he didn't is because he's disconnected. He doesn't have Republicans on his show. He doesn't talk to people outside his bubble. He doesn't understand anyone he disagrees with. He doesn't know anyone he disagrees with. If he did, whole thing would never have gotten this far. And this is a problem that affects the whole party. They rally around the wrong guys. Guys like Colbert and Kimmel and Avenatti, Smollett or the Maryland dad. Rich snobs, liars, crooks, and illegals. But they won't rally behind families or workers or cops or people like Irina who get stabbed to death on a train. Or heroes like Daniel Penny who saved people from being stabbed to death on a train. Or even just the idea of Charlie Kirk, someone whose life was taken just for talking to them.
Welcome to Hannity, and tonight Charlie Kirk's friend and mentor Frank Turek is speaking out about what happened in the car in the immediate aftermath of the shooting and the moment that he knew that Charlie had passed on and was with Jesus. Take a look.
Charlie Kirk was literally like a son to me. I have 3 sons. He was like my 4th son. My 3 sons are a little bit older than Charlie. He was like my 4th son. So when he was hit, if your son got hit, what would you do? What would you do? I got in the car. Because if there was any way I could save him, I had to do something.
Frank will join us and tell us the entire story. That's coming up in just a moment. Plus, Biden's former chief of staff, Jeff Zients, was grilled by lawmakers on Capitol Hill today as part of the Biden cover-up probe. He revealed a lot tonight, critical new information coming up with the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. He will explain all, but first tonight, it is official. Jimmy Kimmel's show has been suspended indefinitely following vile comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination, including this one portraying the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination as MAGA, which everybody knew at the time was false. Take a look.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Now, the decision last night was made by ABC, the same ABC, remember, that fired the top-rated Roseanne Barr over a tweet, and popular top-rated radio host Bob Grant for a comment that he made on the air after the death of Ron Brown, former Commerce Secretary. But after spending years pushing cancel culture, the left's hypocrisy was on full display over Kimmel's suspension as they predictably and immediately went into full-blown meltdown mode. Take a look.
Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He, every night, has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans. It should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him. That is not who we are, and every American should care and stand up to this.
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values.
I mean, understand, if we go down this road, and it seems like this is where we are destroying the freedom of expression in America.
I've also read a whole lot about authoritarian regimes. This is the playbook, folks. If you're not paying attention now and doing something about it, well, then you're going to have to sit down the rest of your life because democracy is being taken away.
Yeah, we have everybody from Jen Psaki to Tim Walz to AOC to Kamala Harris, and the list goes on and on. Oh, they're saying the exact same thing they're now condemning. Former President Obama decided to weigh in on X, saying, quote, after years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators they don't like. We'll explain the truth in a second. What makes that so interesting, according to Roseanne Barr, it was Barack and Michelle Obama who called CEO of Disney, ABC, Bob Iger, to have her fired from her hit show in 2018 over a controversial tweet she made, and her show was a massive success, unlike Kimmel's. But it wasn't just elected officials. Of course, their allies in the legacy media mob also rushing to feign their predictable moral outrage, the double standards, so fear over ABC's decision. Wait till you hear about Jimmy's ratings in a second, but take a look.
Even though we're talking about comedy, this is so serious, Aaron. Yeah. America is a less free place if late-night comedians cannot do and say what they want.
This is just the latest chapter in Donald Trump's ongoing campaign to crack down on free speech, dominate the media, and essentially render the First Amendment meaningless.
The suppression of Democratic Party speech is coming next.
That is a message to every other broadcaster on every other medium in this country that if you say something the leader doesn't like, you're probably at risk of getting axed.
They are looking for reasons to get Jimmy Kimmel, and they manufactured one out of something that is, you know, hardly a dramatic departure from what lots of people are saying.
You can't go around firing somebody because you're fearful or trying to suck up to an authoritarian criminal administration in the Oval Office.
Now, the Screen Actors Guild also spoke out condemning the suspension of Kimmel's show. Kind of funny, because I don't remember this outrage from them when Gina Carano was fired from the hit show Mandalorian over her conservative views and social media posting. Now, maybe worse, though, of all was, well, Rosie O'Donnell, somewhere in Ireland, who took to Instagram and said, quote, F this fascist administration and corrupt corporate executives before adding that, quote, America is no more. Now that we have shown you, and this is only a sampling, and we're gonna have by the end of the show, hopefully, we just came out, all the clips we have about Tim Walz and AOC and Kamala Harris and prominent Democrats, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, all saying the very thing that they're accusing conservatives are, which isn't even true. But we've shown you the collective meltdown. Let's talk about what actually happened here. For starters, if Jimmy Kimmel had had a massive audience, if he were successful, he probably would not be in the position he's in right now. But his show was failing, and failing spectacularly. At one point, he had pretty good ratings, ran it straight into the ground. He has lost almost a total of 1 million viewers from just 10 years ago. Look at this number. He lost a whopping 72% of younger viewers aged 25 to 54. In other words, losing pretty much 3 out of 4 viewers in that very key category, his, quote, target audience. So when ratings go that low and you lose 72% of your target audience, guess what else dries up right after that? It's called revenue. Revenue that ABC, Disney were hoping they could rely on and count on, and his vile comments this week were just the straw that broke the camel's back. And groups that own these ABC stations, they were fed up. You know, everyone's outraged over the fact that Jimmy Kimmel, his show is on indefinite suspension. Did any of those people that are so outraged over this, did they express the same outrage, most of them, about the murder of a husband and father of 2 young children? Just something to ponder. You know, where's your moral compass? Your North Star, if you will. Anyway, with Next Star Television and Sinclair Broadcasting leading the charge, announcing they were pulling the failing show off their channels indefinitely. In the end, it was ABC, Bob Iger, he's in charge, who made the decision to pull the show off the air indefinitely. And as Dave Portnoy pointed out, for those on the left that are screaming about this being part of cancel culture, it is not. No one was looking for dirt on Jimmy Kimmel to get him fired. Instead, he was suspended by ABC as a consequence for his callous actions. Over the years, there have been attempts, for example, to get yours truly fired, to get this show boycotted, to get Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, other conservatives off the air. Not one prominent conservative voice in the country was out there leading the charge with money, fed to groups like Media Matters, giving out lists of my advertisers for Jimmy to be fired. They're simply, they simply never watched the show. Conservatives knew where he was coming from. They didn't want to watch. And he alienated half the audience. According to a new report, Kimmel had no plans to make an apology. In fact, according to this report, he actually planned to double down on his MAGA attacks. And now there are still plenty of platforms. Good news for Jimmy Kimmel, for him to go on and to spew his hatred of Donald Trump and conservatives. It just won't be on a broadcast network, which in recent years has become a complete disgrace anyways. And Jimmy, you lost 72% of your key demo. What happened to comedy shows? This is where nobody wants to talk about this little part. Nowadays, these late night shows are more akin to something you'd see on fake news CNN, and they're not doing particularly well, or MSDNC. They have all long abandoned the mission to be a late night comedy show. They simply are no longer funny. Trump derangement syndrome became all that would drive these shows. We all know what happened to Colbert. His show is one that is overly political, anti-Trump, one anti-Trump tirade after another, now with a small audience and no revenue. And they're actually losing, according to CBS, $40 million a year. They decided it's not worth it. It's coming to an end. Today's late night comedians could have learned a thing or two from the king of late night himself, Johnny Carson. Look what he told Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes about why he doesn't talk about controversial issues or politics. Take a look.
But you're not. Why do they think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues? That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And, you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should.
Or maybe they should have listened to Jay Leno, who, by the way, made a career poking fun at both sides. Very successful career. Here's what he said after the firing of Colbert.
I like to think that people come to a comedy show to kind of get away from the things, you know, the pressures of life, wherever it might be. And I love political humor, don't get me wrong, but it's just what happens is people wind up cozying too much to one side or the other. Why shoot for just half an audience all the time? You know, why not try to get the whole? I mean, I like to bring people into the big picture. I don't understand why you would alienate one particular group, you know, or just don't do it at all. I'm not saying you have to throw your support or whatever, but just do what's funny.
Do what's funny on a late night comedy show. Well, that's a novel thought. You know, if you want to be a liberal commentator, go work for fake news CNN, MSDNC. But there's another aspect at play here, because broadcast networks also have licenses granted by the FCC. And as Brendan Carr explained on this show last night, that comes with an obligation to act in the public interest. Clearly, with a plethora of evidence available, purposely not telling the truth about the suspected Charlie Kirk assassin, not exactly acting in the public interest. These hosts did it to themselves. They have failed miserably, and they had years to adjust. They had years to adapt. They had years to reflect on their declining audiences. They had plenty of opportunities. They could have made adjustments. They could have made changes to their show. They could have, you know, read the room, if you will. They've been completely blinded to what their programs were supposed to be about. That's comedy. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.